Okay, hello again, everybody. Hopefully, the audio is working this time. I just recorded this video, and then as soon as I finished, I realized there'd been some kind of problem with the audio, and it hadn't recorded. So let me just check that I. Oh, it seems like it's working. Okay, all right. So I'm just going to do this again. At the beginning of the last recording, I said I just got back from Scotland a couple of days ago, and I'm actually quite jet lagged. And I apologize if I speak more nonsense than usual. But I should have said I apologize if I have any technical difficulties. So anyway, what are we talking about today? What exciting topic are we talking about? And we're talking about the novels or the work of Chong Yon-moon. And now my computer is just slowing down. See, it's extremely hot here in Seoul, and I think everybody, including my trusty desktop computer here, is feeling the heat. So okay, we're talking about Chong Young-moon. There he is, handsome chap. And so this is not a review of one specific book, just more of a survey of some of his works in general. And so, yes, I called this, I actually wrote a version of this script that I've prepared as an article. And the article was called The Anti-Novels of Chong Young-moon. And anyway, so let's talk about this guy. So, have you ever read a novel where nothing really happens, but somehow you can't look away, where every sentence feels like a detour, every thought leads to another rabbit hole, and by the end, you're not even sure what the book was about, but you felt something? Welcome to the world of Chong Young-moon, perhaps the most eccentric, most unclassifiable writer in South Korea today. And in this video, as I mentioned, we'll be looking at the anti-novels of Chong Young-moon, a writer who does everything he can to shatter conventional storytelling and leaves the reader questioning the very idea of narrative. Is it fiction? Is it a memoir? Or is it all complete nonsense? Or perhaps that's the point. So, from surreal digressions to Noam Chomsky jokes, burglars, and broken memories, Chong's novels are quite unlike almost anything else in Korean literature, and they just might change the way you think about reading itself if you're receptive to Chong's style of writing and the type of thing that he's doing in his works. So Chong is regarded by many as possibly the most eccentric Korean writer working today. His work defies easy interpretation and lies far beyond any regular definition of what a novel is. And the novels and short stories that he's produced over the course of a 20 plus, almost 30-year career now, have often have little in the way of traditional narrative or plot or characterization. Indeed, of the two novels and various short stories that translated into English that I've read so far, there's only really one short story that has what I think most readers would recognize as having something approaching a plot or regular characters. So instead, he frequently employs a kind of automatic or free-associative style of writing that wanders seemingly aimlessly from one thought to another. And the experience of reading a Chong novel or story is like observing the unmediated thoughts of a stranger as their mind strays, unmotivated from memory to memory, apparently without logic or reason. And for these reasons, his work is bracingly different from virtually every single other Korean writer that has made it into translation, or at least that has made it into my orbit or my awareness. And so singular is his work that a contemporary novelist and short story writer of Chong's, Pak Min-gyu, he said that, quote, if someone in the future asks in frustration, What has Korean literature been up to? We can quietly hand them Vaseline Buddha by Jung Young-moon. And Pac's point is that there's very little else like the work of Jung Young-moon. And it's quite a compliment in its way, because Pak Ming-gyu is quite an eccentric chap himself. So while Korean literature and translation is often associated, or has often been associated at times, with emotionally resonant narratives, so think of Han Gang's A Vegetarian, or Please Look After Mom, or something like that. We also have bracing more experimental things like Kim Young has I Have the Right to Destroy Myself. But Chong is doing something altogether stranger and more experimental than these works. His writing completely, or almost entirely, disregards plot and psychological realism in favor of digression, detachment, and absurdist introspection. So where someone like Han Gang delves into trauma through sparse lyricism, and someone like Kim Young Ha uses sort of modernist sort of aesthetics to explore existential angst and so on. Chong dismantles narrative itself altogether, and his project, or one of his goals, or something he's interested in, seems to be exposing the underlying absurdities of language and thought. His fiction doesn't offer catharsis or resolution, or at least it's certainly not something I've experienced reading his work, but instead revels in confusion and contradiction. And these are qualities that I think mark him out as something of an outlier in Korea's literary landscape, and just a generally a daring and original voice in world literature. So, sorry, excuse me. It's really hot here in Seoul today. So let me just give you a little bit of background about Moon. This might be the first time you're hearing about him. So Moon was born in 1965 in the Hamgyang province. He studied psychology at Seoul National University, and he published his first story, A Man Who Barely Exists, in 1996. He received some recognition early in his career when he was awarded the East West Literary Award for A Chain of Dark Tales. And this was his first collection of short stories. And that was published in 1998. Since then, he's continued writing novels and short stories, and so far, I think he's produced well over a dozen books. However, it wasn't until a decade, or more than a decade, after that first collection was published, that he achieved wider recognition from the Korean literary community. So after laboring in relative obscurity for over a decade, in 2012, he was awarded three significant literary awards in rapid succession. So he got the 17th Han Moo-sok Literary Award, the 43rd Dongin Literary Award, and the 20th Daesan Literary Award. And these awards, they were all given in recognition of his novel, A Contrived World, which is this one there. And actually, just let me make a little side note about these, actually. So this book, A Contrived World, it was published as part of the Dalkey Archive Library of Korean Literature, and I've reviewed several books from the Dalkey Archive before. He's the only writer who got two books published in the Dalkey Archive series. He also got this collection of short stories published in the Dalkey Archive. Now, I don't know why he's the only person who got two books published in that collection. So maybe someone at Dalkey is a huge fan of Jung Young-moon. And also, I don't know why, but most of all of the Dalkey books, right, they all have this style of cover. not a great cover, to be honest. But the only book in the series that doesn't is A Contrived World. So I don't know how that happened either. Maybe this was going to be getting published to a different publisher, but it's the only book in the series where they use a different style, for the cover. I kind of don't. It's always been a little interesting little nugget for me to ponder. So anyway, yeah. So yeah, in a Contrived World. So he won these 3 big awards in 2012 for this novel, A Contrived World. And generally, I think the critics see this work as where Chong perfected a style of perfected a style of writing that he is, this very specific style that he's pursuing. So not only is it a type of semi-autobiographical memoir and travel journal, but it's also a meta-fictional contemplation of the very act of writing a novel. Actually, that saying it like that make it. Bae sometimes does things like this, right? But anyway, the story, if you can even really call it a story, is superficially about a trip to San Francisco. However, the narrator constantly interrupts whenever any conventional narrative attempts to assert itself by reflecting on the actual process of writing the novel. And as a reading experience, it's bizarre. It's a sort of a heady blend of dreams and memories of fact and fiction. And it's all sort of leavened with a dry wit and a tragicomic view of the absurdities of life. And for the right kind of reader, I think it can be an intoxicating reading experience. But for others, I suspect it's an exercise in extreme frustration. And Chong's earlier novel, Vaseline Buddha, was published in 2010. It's a similarly immersive or infuriating experience, depending on your tolerance for meta-fictional, stream of consciousness, semi-autobiographical memoir monologues with no real characters or plot. If that sounds like your kind of thing, then Vaseline Buddha is definitely one for you. And it begins with the narrator, a version of Chong, sorry. It begins with the narrator. So the narrator is a sort of a stand-in for Jung Young-moon himself. And he's sitting at a desk attempting to conceive of an idea for a novel. And as he contemplates this, a burglar attempts to break in. And Chong, as narrator, accidentally startles the burglar, who subsequently runs off. And as the burglar runs off into the night, this unexpected event sends the narrator on a free-associative trip down memory lane. And again, as with A Contrived World, anytime anything resembling a plot or even a sort of simple, coherent anecdote rears its ugly head, the narrator steps in and undercuts it with a digression or some other disruption. And so the narrator circles around and around various observations, some of which at times are just incredibly banal, and others seem to be reaching for something more profound. So, for example, he describes trips to foreign countries, which may or may not have happened. He mentions potential lovers or partners whom he met or perhaps didn't. And at one point, he references Noam Chomsky, famous linguist Noam Chomsky's famous phrase, colorless green ideas sleep furiously. And Chomsky devised that sentence to illustrate an argument about how the brain processes language. So even though the sentence is grammatically correct, we immediately recognize that it's complete nonsense. And it's tempting to view this as Chong's ironic comment on his own work. So the language, the novels, the stories all technically make sense, but we, the reader, recognize them as complete nonsense. And maybe from this point of view, we can see Chong's work as an attempt to expose the arbitrary rules of language and life and the inherent meaninglessness of these things. Or then again, perhaps it means nothing whatsoever. But since his banner year in 2012, Chong's profile has continued to rise, both here at home as well as internationally. His work's been translated into French and German, where I believe he's actually found a deal of popular success. His work continues to be translated into English with greater frequency. Like I said, we have the collection of short stories, A Most Ambiguous Sunday. We have the two novels, A Contrived World and Vaseline Buddha. And then there's another short story available in the Asia Publishers series. And yeah, so he's also, it's worth mentioning that he's a prolific translator of books into Korean. And he's translated books by writers such as Germaine Greer, Raymond Carver, and a bunch of others. And he said in interviews that he sees himself as an heir to writers like Beckett and Kafka. And there's definitely echoes of those writers in his work, as well as some hints of other great modernist writers like James Joyce or Virginia Woolf and people like this. And but as indebted as he might be to these sort of giants, he's, at the same time, he's a singular writer doing something unique. And I think we should celebrate that for its very uniqueness, if in the eyes of some readers, that might be the only reason to celebrate his work. Anyway, I'd like to read a short extract from Vaseline Buddha, just so you can get a taste of his writing style. So hold on. This is a little tricky. All right, so here we go. The physical ailment that I'd imagined would come to me, however, was seizure or leg trouble or something of that sort. I'd also thought at one time that if one of my legs became impaired, I could procure a nice cane, and with 3 legs, now that one had been added, take more complicated rhythmic steps, which wouldn't have been possible with 2 legs. I actually took a very careful look at an old woman with bad legs at the park one day, taking modest steps, relying on a cane, submitting to a certain rhythm, and afterwards, when I saw normal people walking, they seemed somewhat stupid and awkward. And if I carried around a cane, I could raise it and politely scare off a dog on a walk with its master, delighted to see me and about to come running, even though we didn't know each other, and prevent it from coming toward me, or use the cane to make the dog come closer as it changed its mind while coming toward me and refused to come any closer, feeling threatened by the cane I was holding, or by me holding the cane. Or before all this happened, I wouldn't have to chase away the tiresome dogs one by one, for the dogs could lose their nerve early on, seeing the cane, and not come close. And as occasion demanded, I could scare someone off, acting as if I would beat him if necessary, even if I didn't actually beat him with the cane. Or I could, using the cane, pluck a ripe apple or a rose, hanging from a branch or a vine, reaching outside the wall of someone's house at a height I couldn't reach with my hand. I'm of the opinion that anyone passing by should be allowed to pluck an apple or a rose hanging from a branch or a vine, reaching outside the wall of someone's house. But once I was caught by the owner while plucking a rose and was somewhat humiliated. The owner of the house was a philosopher well known to the public, and he was furious at me, as if quite upset that one of his roses had been stolen. The aged philosopher seemed to be of the philosophy that nothing that belonged to him should be taken away from him by anyone, but it was my philosophy, if I had any philosophy at all, that something so small as taking an apple or a rose without the owner's permission should be allowed on this earth, still the only planet among the countless planets in the universe known to have life forms. A world in which you couldn't pilfer a luscious fruit or a rose while taking a walk on a bright afternoon or in the middle of the night would indeed be a world without hope. After that, I saw the philosopher in front of his house, severely scolding a dog, though I'm not sure if it was his dog or someone else's, or what it had done, and he was scolding it as menacingly as he did when I plucked one of his roses. In other words, I was scolded by him just as the the hapless dog was scolded. Mercy was possibly the ultimate sentiment that a human could have toward other humans and living things, but it seemed that he had no mercy. He always seemed fraught with anger, and it was possible that he became angry even with his desk or dishes from time to time. And anyway, so if you've made it this far, congratulations. You've just survived a little journey through the absurd and the abstract and maybe the oddly beautiful world of Jung Young-moon. And whether his writing feels like a literary prank or a deep philosophical meditation is really up to you. But one thing's certain: you won't forget the experience of trying to read some Jung Young-moon. If you've read any of these works, so Vaseline Buddha or A Contrived World or any of the other stories he's had published, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of this writing style? Does it frustrate you? Does it fascinate you? Does it do a bit of both? And don't forget to like the video if you want to, and hit the subscribe button for more literary explorations into the strange, the weird, and the beautifully difficult. And until next time, keep reading, and especially keep reading the weird stuff. And thanks for watching. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you back here in the next video.